All right, everybody, welcome to my channel. It's me, Simba. Today I have a very special guest. His name is Alpha State, and I actually across him on TikTok on my For You page. He has ran into some very interesting conspiracy theories. I'm sure if you've ever been on TikTok or the internet in general, you've kind of, dug down some rabbit holes. And I thought this was a pretty interesting topic to share with you all. So, yeah, without any further ado, Alpha State, if you'd like to, kind of introduce yourself, and then, yeah, we could, start the discussion from there.
Yeah, no, my name is real name's Eric. I go by Alphastate2012 on my TikTok handle. Yeah, I've been doing this for not too long, actually. I fell down the rabbit hole, this particular rabbit hole that you found me on TikTok back in May, and it's been deep and it goes deep, and it's amazing when you see all the different buildings that we have out here in Denver, Colorado. But yeah, I've been on the conspiracy trail for a long time now, so there's a lot to talk about and unpack there, but we could take it one by one.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, let's unravel that. I briefly came across, I mean, there's so many conspiracies on the internet, and like honestly, a lot of them are true. So, the thing about the internet and the day and age that we live in is it's the age of information, and you could literally type in a hashtag and continue to do your own research. I mean, back in the day, it was like the internet is just like an amazing tool, but with that also brings a lot of, truth, hidden truths to the forefront if people search for it. Of course. This particular conspiracy theory involves architecture, buildings, and timelines. Like in a broad, sense, how can you describe and can you describe what this conspiracy is? And then we could, go step by step and kind of dig deeper.
Yeah, no, definitely. So I actually found this through the hashtag Tartaria. So the Tartaria land is on a bunch of ancient maps, and we don't really see what it is or what it was, or really we're told about it or learn about it in school. And the more you dive deeper down this rabbit hole, you start seeing that there's just buildings that were built on in time frames that just don't seem like they could have been built in that time frame. And so I mean, and it goes even deeper than that too. I mean, like it really depends on which way you go to with it, because like a lot of people talk about the millennial reign of Christ, and how Christ had 1,000 year reign, and all these buildings are actually from the 1,000 year reign of Christ. So it's kind of like there's a lot of different directions that it goes. So it's been really interesting to me, because really right now what I'm doing is just I'm questioning everything. Like you look at these buildings and you're like, how did we build this in the 1900s and the late 1800s, when we're with horse and buggy and we're with hammer and chisel and we're just chiseling away at these massive structures that we see today. And I mean, it dives deep. There's a lot of folks that I started following through it, and I mean, we can keep on going. I don't want to overwind and then
Yeah, for
miss some of the
sure. I
questions, but we can
mean,
keep on.
yeah, so I guess I mean, from like a base level, it kind of sounds like the same question we pose with the pyramids in Egypt. Like, how are these massive structures built
Yep.
with primitive tools or with like technology that may not have been from the history books as advanced as, perceived? So does that have any correlation to like the pyramids? Is it kind of like going down that same kind of like thought process of how is it like because there's once you start with one conspiracy theory, you could really dissect it and go like 10 different lanes. And that's what's so difficult about, explaining and really talking about these. But does it have any correlation, like from a base conspiracy? Because I'm sure a lot of people have wondered how buildings are built with primitive technology. That's like one of the earliest conspiracies I believe people kind of think about.
Yeah, no, and I mean that's actually a really interesting point too, because when you look at them and then you see like the history and all the different like theories of how they were built, it really is kind of like that tip of the iceberg kind of thing. But then when you start seeing, like, I would say like one of the biggest ones I think is churches and cathedrals, and the way that they're built now, and like across the world, not just in the US. Like it really, you look in Europe and you see these massive structures, and they say they were built in the 1500s and the 1600s, and it's just like, how could they have possibly built these things? Like what tools were they using? I actually saw another one, which was really interesting, that none of them had plumbing. Like, So we think about today and how important plumbing is because of our internal plumbing. So how are these buildings built without plumbing? Where are these people going to take a shit? Like, what were they doing?
Yeah,
So like that just opens up questions right there. Okay, so then maybe these are something else. And then you start looking at like they start connecting dots. I don't know if you've ever heard of cymatic patterns. So like
I've
if
heard
you
of that.
take like a metal whatever, just a metal plate, and you put sand on that metal plate and you run frequencies or vibrations through that, it'll
Mm.
start forming its own patterns.
Yeah, I mean frequency. Okay, now you kind of caught me on that frequency part, and I mean not to throw us off track, but frequencies and churches, I heard that bells are like very significant when it comes terms to frequencies. I actually wanted to start bringing back copper jewelry because I know copper jewelry is actually very beneficial in terms of frequencies as well, especially like drinking water out of a copper cup. I feel like those are things, and this is, I feel like almost lost knowledge because when pointing back to like looking at glyphs and whatnot, people actually used to wear these kind of like copper like armbands and things of that sort to like increase their vibrational frequency. Now, I also heard music has its own frequency, and if you play music at different levels, it has like different benefits as well as detriments. So, I mean, you kind of caught me on that, but explain a little bit more. Like, what do you think the frequencies and buildings, do these have a correlation? And are some of these things maybe lost knowledge that we may have known before, but kind of got, so to speak, buried?
Yeah, actually, no, that's great, and it ties perfectly to it because if even if we think about, I'm a musician. I'm actually this is my band right here. I don't know if I can see the whole shirt. Iron Prophecy. I
Nice.
actually have another TikTok channel, another channel. That the band is a whole other thing. We play reggae music,
For
but
sure.
I
Shout the
was
name out real quick in case people want to check it out.
yeah, Iron Prophecy Reggae. And then I
Yeah.
think the handle's Iron Prophecy Reggae on TikTok. It's Iron Prophecy on YouTube. And we're on everything. We're on Instagram, Facebook, all that stuff. We're doing some big things right now. We're still small, but we're doing big things. So,
So,
hell yeah,
so yeah, I
appreciate that.
mean that ties into like music frequency. Though those are frequency levels. You were explaining kind of like that metal sheet and like crafting and architecture of that sort. What have you found here locally in Denver that kind of like maybe raised an eyebrow or something that's shocking that you might have uncovered by the research that you've done?
Yeah, the castles, the castles that we found. Like I mean, I say we as in like people in the comment sections are the ones that are leading me to all these places because I'm not from Denver. I lived here for 5 years. I moved away and then I came back
Yeah.
and then I started diving. I dived actually just to kind of pull back even further. I was in Brazil when I dove down this rabbit hole. My wife is Brazilian and we were there for like a couple weeks and I was just bored because she was out doing her thing. She had a bunch of stuff she needed to do because she hadn't been there in a little while, been back home. So I'm just on TikTok, just scrolling. And that's where I started diving down the rabbit hole. And then I started looking around her little town. And that's actually the very first two pin, or the first two pin videos on my TikTok channel are from Brazil. And when you look, these churches have those cymatic patterns. And so when you think about back in the day when these were built in the late 1800s, maybe those were built, I think they were like in the 1860s, those were built 1870s. Like how did they get the cymatic patterns? So it's almost like it's the vibrational frequency of the bell that was inside of the church at the time that could create it. And then maybe it was hardened into concrete that actually then they put it up there and they make the stained glass because the big theory too, huge, amazing cathedral here in our, it's called the Basilica of Immaculate Conception here in Denver, and it looks like a healing center. And that's what I think that these things was back in the day, they had the copper, just like you're saying, on the top, and the bells rang a certain frequency that would pull energy from the ether up in the air, up in the atmosphere, pull energy from the ether, and people would actually go to these centers to heal.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, makes a lot of sense if you think about it and you connect the dots. I mean, I also hear like linen fabric is also like very good, like bacteria cannot thrive on it. And then we can loop back around to what you said about, I want to kind of dive a little bit deeper into what you said about Jesus, but also these healing centers and then getting like energy from the air. I think this is something what like Nikola Tesla was on, but also like if you go a lot further back, maybe that's what these pyramids were doing. I mean, it's yeah, explain that also a little bit before we delve a little bit into talking more about Jesus. Let's talk about the energy that is like naturally gravitated through frequencies.
Yeah, no, and I mean it's all around us because I mean we're made of energy. Everything is energy, currency, and everything flows through that. And that's exactly like Nikola Tesla was doing. That's why they buried all the stuff that he was doing, and they took it and they don't show us that stuff because we can create free energy. The other thing that you hear about this stuff too is that there's either water that runs through these buildings or they're close to waterfronts because of the currency of the water also helps with that frequency. And like the copper, there's all these like there's a guy on TikTok, his name is Indio369, and his dad or he has Freemasonry in his in his family, and so he's dove really deep into this stuff. And like the bridges that have copper lights on them, those lights would work just by free energy. And all the energy was free way back in the day because they knew how to create it from the ether. How I don't know, but I you can look at these buildings and you start questioning, and when you start trying to connect all the different dots that you hear of all these different conspiracies, it starts to like that makes sense. I don't know how it makes sense because I don't have that written in front of me, but I know that this just feels right. Like it feels right in your soul, like that's what used to be this world was all free energy, healing centers. Like I mean, even to the point going back to the bathroom thing, like maybe we didn't even have waste because we could go to these centers and we would be healed of whatever was inside of us anyways, and we were fully utilizing anything that we were having. Maybe we didn't even have food back then. We don't know. There's like all these different questions that keep popping up in my head that you'll never know an answer to. Like
Yeah,
you got to just keep digging and keep asking questions and keep making other people ask questions. That's really the point of my channel too, is getting other people
yeah.
to ask questions.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. Thank you for hopping on this interview as well, because I think that's the point of this, to like have people ask questions, delve deeper. I think you pointed at a key right there, which was connecting the dots. When you take a lot of factual information and start connecting a lot of dots, I think the truth becomes always clearer and clearer. But it always starts with one step, and one step of asking why and how and what and when and where. You feel me? So I think that's very important. I want to, and as we start to wrap up just a little bit, I want to delve deeper just a little bit into your belief. Like, what do you believe in? Like, what do you think this current society is at? Where, what do you think we're at as a society right now? Do you believe? And then I know you pointed at Jesus a little bit. I want to hear a little bit more about your beliefs, like religiously or anything of that sort as well.
Yeah, no, I mean it it's interesting because I'm not a religious person by any means, and that's another thing. Like again, going back to that Indio, he's very studied on the Bible as well, and you can connect the dots and see how the Bible actually has the some of the hidden truths inside it as well.
Yeah,
But
for sure.
it ties people down into a a certain way of thinking that they don't see the broader view, and that's why I see it from a spiritual sense. And right now I see that the veil is lifting, like everything is coming out more and more. And like if you think about just even 5, 10 years ago, like these ideas and they were not like even in my mindset. But as the veil starts lifting, we start seeing things like another conspiracy, the Mandela effect. Like I think that that's a product of the veil being lifted and us starting to merge timelines with other timelines. And I mean, I could go off on a lot of these conspiracies.
Tell me real quickly, entertain me. What do you think about the Denver International Airport? Because I mean, that's one for sure here locally that everybody go crazy about.
Yeah, no, man, I actually did a lot of, I was going to do some filming recently, but they've taken a lot of the stuff, like kind of taken it, like, so they still got the gargoyles and the luggage down at baggage claim, but they took away those really crazy symbolic pictures that
Like
they had
crazy
murals on
pictures.
the
Yeah,
wall.
I mean, they were, yeah, people have
Yeah,
seen them for sure.
but like they moved more dirt, so they're like they moved enough dirt inside of that thing to fill the Panama Canal. They apparently built like two buildings that were like 6 or 7 stories. Then they're like, oh,
It
we
for
fucked
sure go
up.
down. Like I'm pretty
They,
sure. Like it has a bunch of levels to it. I wouldn't be surprised if it's like 100-story underground building
oh
at this
yeah, oh
point.
yeah.
But
It's
I mean,
and I,
anything like you said, anything could be possible. Like so there's so many possibilities, and I think the biggest thing to this is like there's obviously a line between truth and false, and there's somebody blurring that line to the point where we don't. There's everything has to be a question nowadays. Like everything has to be questioned because there's there's so much that we don't know that we should know, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, totally, totally. Like, and even going back to like the millennial reign of Christ and like what the like some of these old maps looked like, and you see some even in the U.S. some of the old maps they have these like castle cities on the map. And then we go into here and we got these churches that are just built like fortresses or built and schools that are built like castles. And it's like,
So
why are
you,
we putting elementary school and middle school kids into castles? Like why did they need to build like that back then?
yeah.
And it just feels like it's almost like what they did, and this is another part of the conspiracy with the millennial reign of Christ, is they just added the one. So it was like built in 1893. No, it was actually built in 893 or built in 1923. No, it was actually built in 923. And that's how they kind of covered up the millennial reign of Christ. And then we get into the Freemasons, and the Freemasons are on everything. All of the cornerstones are always labeled with the Freemasons, and they basically hold all of the knowledge because they open up those cornerstones. They take out all the stuff that was there, and then they put whatever the hell they want back in, and then they just seal that cornerstone back up and put whatever the hell they want on it because they're the Freemasons. They found the masonry and they took it for free. That's why they're the Freemasons.
And tell me, you said so the to go a little bit more into this conspiracy, the millennial reign of Christ has already happened in this conspiracy. Also, timelines are shifted and maps were altered. Is that kind of like the gist of it as well?
Yeah, yeah, and even in the millennial reign, we're in the a lot of people say we're in Satan's little season right now, the 250-year reign of Satan, and that's why everything feels so freaking evil right now too, and like the music's evil, the like the way we're so divided right now, and that's where it feels like because it's ending, it's coming to an end right now based on the timelines, and that's where I feel like why everything's kind of merging together a little bit right
So
now. It's just
I have a quick question.
yeah.
Do you think the reign of Christ has already happened? And then also, if the answer is yes or no, what do you think happens next? I mean, obviously, we all don't have the answers, but like predictions, I know you might have a gut feeling of like, well, this could be leading to X, Y, Z.
You know, it's interesting because like when I dove down the Tartaria rabbit hole, I started calling everything here in Denver like Tartaria. I was hashtagging Tartaria. And then I started to realize like this is like Tartaria was a place on the map in like basically old Russia. So it's not necessarily so that's what made me start thinking, okay, well maybe this was all from the millennial reign of Christ. If you put a map of Egypt, basically Egypt was the United States, like the not Egypt, but the the promised land, so to speak, was actually America. Like they, if you could, you put the map over in the Mississippi River, basically is the Egyptian, what's it called? The Nile, which is interesting. They call it the Nile.
I
But
mean, yeah,
then
I've
you have,
heard, I kind of heard a little bit about that one as well, that which would be crazy, like to even think about if this was a promised land. But because I've seen that there's a lot of things in America named after like Egyptian places and things of that
yeah,
sort. So yeah, okay, so that's interesting. Where do you think this culminates to? What do you think we're kind of coming to an end, a new beginning? Like, what do you think is happening right here?
you know, and that's a really another good question too, because I thought the end was 2012. That's why I have
Okay.
Alphastate 2012
Mhm.
because of the Mayan calendar.
Mhm.
And it didn't, and things kept going. And that's kind of the way I see it is that things are going to keep going. They're probably going to continuously get worse, but it's because it's becoming a spiritual shift. And it's like a break. And you're either going to be completely blind to it or you're going to shift into more of that spiritual path and start seeing it for yourself because it really I don't see a reset happening or anything like that in our lifetime where everything just goes back to the way it was. I see society continuing to do what we do. It's just going to be further division of that spiritual aspect of things because that's what it feels like right now. Like people are just lost spiritually completely. Not everybody, but a ton of people. And I feel like that's what they're really doing. That's where the division's coming. That's why they're trying to create the divide. Because the more that they can divide and confuse, the further away you get connected to your own spirit.
For sure. Wow. Deep words right there, for sure. Well, Alpha State, I want to give you a thank you for coming on my channel, coming on the internet, and explaining a little bit more about this and like a long form content. I know TikTok is always cool, and I'll probably post a few of these clips to YouTube and TikTok and whatnot. But do you have any like last words? I think for me, this was an awesome conversation just to really have. I think it's always good to have an open mind to things, have dialect conversation, do research. I feel like that's how we could all further as a society. It says, like our people will die for a lack of knowledge. And I think that's so real because even just nowadays, there's so many distractions and it takes a lot more energy to kind of research and become more spiritual and become more, closer with whether it's your religion, whether it's God, with yourself, whatever you believe in. I think it's harder to invest in yourself and it's easier to just, kind of watch things go by. But those
Yeah.
are kind of my words. What do you think about it?
Yeah, no, 100%. I just think that like follow your intuition. That's the biggest thing. Like, and our intuition is really speaking to us right now, especially because these timelines are shifting and the veil is lifting, that we're really we're hearing voices that may not even be our own inside of our own head. So that's why you really have to pay attention to your intuition and see what you think. Because at the end of the day, like even if you come over and you watch my channel, at the end of the day, like I'm showing beautiful freaking architecture. Like these things were built back in the 20s, supposedly in the late 1800s, and they are absolutely gorgeous. And we just don't build like that today. So even if you don't want to say like, oh wow, this is the millennial reign of Christ, or oh my God, it's Tartaria from 1,000 years ago, and we didn't build these things. Just look at the architecture and look at the architecture in your own city too, because we don't appreciate where we came from. And that's one of the biggest steps too, is to appreciate where we came from so that we can get to where we're going.
Oh man, that's awesome. Very, yeah, wise words for sure. But thank you everybody for checking out this video. We appreciate your time and yeah, go do your own research and I hope you all have a nice day. Talk to y'all later.